We know that galvanometer is a current measuring device. Then if it is so, can we make use of this galvanometer to measure the current flowing in a circuit? Whenever current flowing in a circuit is of large value, then this galvanometer cannot be used directly to measure that current, because the galvanometer may not be able to sustain large amount of current, since it shows maximum or full scale deflection even for a current of the order microampere. Because of this reason, the galvanometer cannot be used directly to measure any large current that is flowing in any circuit. Then, is there any other alternative? Of course, ammeter is there, but ammeter is also basically a galvanometer. So, we need to modify the galvanometer to measure the current. If we do suitable alterations or modification to the galvanometer, then we can make use of this galvanometer itself as an ammeter to measure the current of desired value in any circuit. So, in our today's class, we shall study about how we modify the galvanometer into ammeter, that is conversion of galvanometer into ammeter. Now, let us know some basic things about this galvanometer. This is nothing but galvanometer. Let us consider. Now, the pointer, when no current is passed, will be always at the center, because in a galvanometer 0 will be at the center, whereas the maximum division value will be at the extreme ends. So, this galvanometer consists of 30 divisions. From 0 to left side 30 division, again from 0 to right side 30 divisions. There are some galvanometer which even consists of 50 divisions. Now, let us stick on to this. Suppose if I pass the current, say for example, I pass a current of, let us say, around 2 milliamps through this galvanometer. Now, the pointer from here, it may move up to here for which current? 2 milliamps. Okay. Now, I pass a current of 5 milliamp. The pointer may move further up to here. Suppose if I pass 10 milliamps current, now the pointer moves further. Now, it may read the maximum value. That means the pointer may produce full scale deflection. Full scale deflection means reading the maximum value either toward this side or toward this side. It all depends upon the direction of the current. In whichever direction we pass the current, all along the direction, so the pointer is going to deflect. Suppose if I reverse the current, then the pointer may deflect toward this side. Let us assume for this direction of current, the pointer is moving towards this side. Suppose if I pass the current from this side, definitely the pointer, instead of moving towards this side, it will move towards this side. Now, suppose if I consider this current which is producing full scale deflection as equal to Ig, then we call this current as full scale deflection current. So, there is one particular name for this current. What is the name given to this current? Full scale deflection current. Okay. Now, suppose if I pass a current of, let us say now 100 milliamps instead of 10 milliamps, then what happens to the pointer? Does the pointer move further ahead? No, because here there will be a stopper at the end point. This stopper does not allow the pointer to move further. So, even though you pass 100 milliamp current, the pointer still reads 30 divisions only. Okay. Suppose if I pass 1000 milliamps, let us say, then what may happen? It is a sensitive device. Therefore, the pointer very quickly it moves towards the extreme end. Then because of the stopper, it may get damaged. The pointer may get damaged. Or even one more thing may happen. What is that means? Because of this large current, the coil of the galvanometer, we know that galvanometer consists of a rectangular coil of wire. So the coil may get damaged because the coil may not be able to sustain this large amount of current. So either the pointer may get damaged or the coil may get damaged. Overall, the the galvanometer itself gets damaged. So the pointer cannot move beyond this, and it is showing full scale deflection for this current, and because of stopper it is not able to move further. Okay. So here, if we modify this galvanometer suitably, then we can make use of this galvanometer to measure the large current. Now at present, what maximum current this galvanometer can measure? This galvanometer can measure a large current, means Ig, which is equal to how much? 10 milliamps, this current. So beyond this, the galvanometer cannot measure. So this is the maximum range of the galvanometer, that is 10 milliamps. Beyond this, it is not possible to measure large current. Suppose now there is a circuit. Say for example, there is a resistance R. Some value of resistance is there. It is being connected to, the two ends of the resistor is connected to a cell. It's connected to a cell or a battery. Now, what's the current that flows? I assume this current to be 300 milliamps. Some value I assume, 300 milliamps. Then to measure this amount of current, this galvanometer may not be suitable. Why? This galvanometer is able to measure the current of maximum only 10 milliamps, not beyond that. Then what is the use of this galvanometer? It is of no use. Suppose if it is able to measure any current that is flowing in a circuit, then definitely we would assert that it is highly useful. Since its maximum measurement range itself is 10 milliamps, then there is no point in using such galvanometer. So what we do means, we have to make this galvanometer itself to measure even this current or the current even larger than this. How it is done? Look here. For this galvanometer, it is connected in series, because current measuring device, any current measuring device in a circuit should be always connected in series. Series means between positive and negative terminal, elsewhere we can connect this current measuring device, either here or here or here or here or even here also. Okay. Now what we do means, I connect one low resistance in parallel with this galvanometer. So let us write it little bigger. So this is the galvanometer. Then in parallel with this galvanometer, I connect one low resistance known as shunt resistance. Okay. Now what happens? The main current is 300 milliamps. Suppose without shunt, if I connect this galvanometer, what happens? I already explained what may happen if the current flows beyond this range. It is not always equal to 10 milliamps. Here I have taken this value as an example to show that what maximum current this galvanometer can measure. So different galvanometer measures a current of different range. Okay. Now here out of 300 milliamps, now what may happen means, only 10 milliamp current may flow through this. Remaining current flows through this. The current that flows through the galvanometer producing a full scale deflection is always known as Ig. Okay. Now what about the current that flows through the shunt? That current is nothing but I minus Ig, because the main current at this point I splits into two parts. One is Ig and another one is I minus Ig. This is the pointer. Now what happens? The galvanometer is safer now. How it is safer? We are allowing only a part of the current to flow through the galvanometer. Part of the current, let us say 10 milliamp. What about this current now? This current is nothing but 290 milliamps. 290 plus 10. Totally it becomes 300 milliamps. For 10 milliamps, the pointer may read full scale deflection. It may go to extreme end. That means now I mark this point as maximum range as equal to now 300 milliamps. How can we write this? For 10 milliamp current, the pointer is showing full scale deflection means certainly whatever deflection it reads, that must be proportional to the main current. Otherwise, there is no point in using this galvanometer again. What is the use of using this galvanometer to measure just 10 milliamps? We have to measure the main current. For that itself, we have modified this. How we modified this? How we altered this? We altered this galvanometer in such a way that we connected one low resistance known as shunt resistance. How we connected this? We connected this in parallel. When we connect this in parallel, then what happens means the whole combination, that means the galvanometer along with the shunt resistance will act as now ammeter. Let us represent this inside a dotted mark. Okay. Now this entire thing will act like an ammeter. So this is how we convert a galvanometer into ammeter to measure the current of desired range. What is the desired range here? 300 milliamps is the current which is to be measured. For that we connected. Now what is the function of this shunt? The shunt is going to bypass the main current. What is the main current? I. When the main current I comes over here, so when it splits, what happens? Majority of the current will now pass through the low resistance path. Shunt is a low resistance. Okay. So majority will flow. Majority current. What is that majority current now here? I minus Ig. Only small current will flow through the galvanometer producing full scale deflection. But whatever full scale deflection it reads, that itself is equivalent to the main current. So instead of marking this as 30, when can I mark this as 30 division? I can mark this as 30 division when there is no shunt, because that's the range, maximum deflection. But because of shunt, the pointer is showing full scale deflection, means whatever deflection it is reading, that deflection must be proportional to main current. Okay. So that is why I mark this as equal to 300. Let us check this whether it is true or not mathematically. But what is the value of shunt to be connected? The value of shunt resistance to be connected depends upon the amount of current to be measured. If the amount of current to be measured changes, shunt resistance also changes. Now let us calculate what is the shunt which is to be connected to measure a current equal to I. Not only 300 milliamps, in general, to measure any current I, what should be the value of shunt? Let us find out this. So before that, let us write how we convert this galvanometer into ammeter. So by connecting a low resistance known as, shunt in parallel with the galvanometer, comma, it can be converted into ammeter. Okay. In order to calculate now the shunt resistance, I write this figure once again, only this part, ammeter part separately. Look here. This is galvanometer. Okay. To this, what is connected? A low resistance shunt is connected. Main current is I. At this point, it splits into Ig, which flows through galvanometer. Remaining current is I minus Ig, and this is nothing but shunt. Now here what happens? 290 milliamps comes to this point, and 10 milliamps also comes to this point. Here 10 milliamps plus 290 milliamps totally produces once again the main current of 300 milliamps. Okay. So if you consider this ammeter part now, in order to calculate the shunt, what's the potential difference between the two ends of the galvanometer? I write like this: potential difference across G. I write this as Vg equal to, how do you write this potential difference as? That potential difference is equal to, according to Ohm's law, current into resistance. What is the resistance of this galvanometer? The resistance of the galvanometer is considered as G. Here we use letter G in common or as a common letter to represent both the galvanometer device and also its resistance. Vg equal to, what is the current flowing through the galvanometer? Ig, which produces full scale deflection. So this is nothing but 0. Now Vg equal to Ig into G. Then what is the potential difference across a shunt? Potential difference across shunt resistance, yes, is Vsi, right, equal to, once again Ohm's law, current. What is the current? I minus Ig. Then what is its resistance? Yes, Ohm's law, current into resistance, current into resistance. But we know very well that in case of parallel combination, your shunt and galvanometer are in parallel with each other. Therefore, in parallel combination, the potential difference always remains to be same. That means the potential difference across G is equal to potential difference across S. That means I can write this as Vg equal to Vs. Now let us substitute for Vg and Vs. Vg is Ig into G equal to Vs means I minus Ig into S. Okay. Now find out the shunt resistance. S equal to Ig into G divided by I minus Ig. So this is the value of shunt which is to be connected across this galvanometer to convert this entire thing into ammeter. If we know what the current that produces full scale deflection in a galvanometer, which is Ig, and by knowing the value of resistance of the galvanometer and also what current is to be measured or what current is flowing in a circuit. So even if that current value is known, then by substituting for Ig, G and as well as I, then what's the value of shunt required to measure the current of the range I ampere, that can be found out. Now here we wrote something here, 300. Okay. Come back to this equation now. I simplify this equation further. Look here, Ig into G equal to, now multiply I into S minus Ig into S. Okay. Now shift this to this side. If I shift this to this side, then what happens? Look here, Ig into G plus Ig into S equal to I into S. Understand? Now what is common here? Ig. into G plus S, which is equal to I into S. Then here if I further cross multiply this, what do I get now? Ig G plus S divided by S, I bring this to left hand side, then this becomes equal to now I. Okay. So here all these are constants. G is constant, S is constant, and Ig for a given galvanometer is also constant. So since all these are constant, what I can write? Ig into some constant K equal to I. So finally what I can write? I can write this as Ig proportional to I. What does it mean? So for a current, if full scale deflection is produced for a current Ig, then that full scale deflection current itself is found to be proportional to the main current. So here I mark this point as 300, that means 300 milliamp is the current. That means suppose through this galvanometer if 5 milliamp flows, then the pointer, instead of showing full scale deflection, it may show a deflection like this. Say for example, this value may be equal to 150 milliamps. Instead of 5 milliamps, suppose if 10 milliamps flows, then for 10 milliamps the pointer from 0 it moves to this point. Now this point now should correspond to how much? 300 milliamp. So this is how the scale in the galvanometer should be calibrated. So we have to modify the galvanometer scale in such a way that whatever main current that flows, that main current itself should be proportional to the current Ig. That means for the current Ig, the full scale deflection must be made proportional to the main current. In such a way, the scale must be calibrated. That means the markings to the scale must be done like that. So half of this means 150 milliamps, then full scale deflection means 300 milliamps. So this corresponds to 150 and this corresponds to 300 milliamp. So this is how we can convert the galvanometer into ammeter. Then what is the effective resistance of this ammeter? The effective resistance of this ammeter here is galvanometer and shunt are parallel to each other. For parallel combination, effective resistance of ammeter, or you can write this as RA. If I use the parallel combination formula, then I can write this as 1 over RA equal to 1 over G plus 1 over S. Effective resistance 1 over R equal to 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2. This we have studied already. So in our previous chapter, that means current electricity chapter. If I simplify this, then what do I get now? Finally, if I simplify this, I get RA equal to, you take the LCM. What is the LCM? You can go one step. G and S are the LCM. Then cross multiply. S, 1 into S is S plus 1 into G is G. So this is 1 over RA. Then RA is finally equal to, reverse this because I am just reversing this reciprocal. So RA equal to G into S divided by G plus S or S plus G. So this is nothing but the effective resistance of the ammeter. So remember, whenever we want to make use of a galvanometer to measure the current, it should be modified properly. How means? By connecting a suitable shunt resistance. So that by connecting suitable resistance, it gets converted into ammeter. What amount of resistance should be connected in parallel with the galvanometer? That depends upon the range of the current to be measured. If the range of the current to be measured changes, then S value also changes. Then we can calculate that by making use of this formula. Okay. Then the main function of the shunt here is, it is going to regulate the current. It allows majority of the current to flow through it and allows only small current to pass through the galvanometer. For that small current, the coil is not going to get affected. The coil is able to withstand the small current. Not only that, the small current is able to produce full scale deflection. So this small current is the range of full scale deflection. So this is how we convert galvanometer into ammeter. Galvanometer is not only used as an ammeter, it can also be used as a voltmeter. That means once again we need to modify or alter the galvanometer to measure the voltage or to measure the potential difference between any two ends of a circuit. Now let us study how we can convert the galvanometer into voltmeter. Conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter. Okay, now once again let us consider this galvanometer. 0, 30 divisions. Suppose now if some potential difference is applied between the two ends, how do we apply the potential difference? Connect these two to the two terminals of a cell or a battery. So when some potential difference is applied, then current flows through this, thereby the galvanometer shows the deflection. Suppose for full scale deflection, let the current be equal to 10 milliamps and let the resistance of the galvanometer be equal to 100 ohm, because most of the galvanometer will have a resistance varying from 80 to 100. There may be some galvanometers having a resistance even more than 100 also. Let V be the potential difference. Okay. Now, what is the potential difference across this galvanometer? That means Vg, potential difference across the galvanometer. G stands for galvanometer. If I want to calculate that, then according to Ohm's law, V equal to I into R. What is I? Ig. Resistance means G. Current into resistance. So Ig is nothing but 10 milliamps. Milli means 10 to the power of minus 3. Galvanometer resistance is nothing but equal to 100. So 10 into 100, 1000 into 10 to the power of minus 3. So get cancelled, V equal to 1 volt, Vg equal to 1 volt. This means the galvanometer can measure a maximum voltage of only up to 1 volt for this full scale deflection. Suppose if there is a circuit where we need to measure the voltage or the potential difference greater than this, then once again this galvanometer is of no use. Directly we cannot connect this galvanometer to measure a voltage of range greater than this. If the voltage to be measured is within this range, then we would have made use of this galvanometer directly. But if the voltage is of, let us say, 10 volts, 20 volts, 30 volts, then we need to alter or we need to modify this galvanometer again. How do we modify this galvanometer? All that we need to do is this, for this galvanometer, now if we connect one I resistance in series with it, okay, R, so 0, let us consider this as usually 30 and as well as 30. So if I connect one I resistance R in series with this galvanometer, then this combination of galvanometer with resistance in series will act like now an voltmeter. Okay, so this acts like a voltmeter. So this is how we convert the galvanometer into voltmeter. Now Suppose if the current required to produce full scale deflection, that means 30 division deflection, is 10 milliamps. If whole galvanometer has a resistance of 100 ohm, then what will be the potential difference between the two ends of the galvanometer? Potential difference between the two ends of the galvanometer is Vg equal to Ig into G. Ig is 10 milliamps, 10 into 10 to the power of minus 3, it is for milli. Milli means 10 to the power of minus 3 into resistance of galvanometer is 100, 10 into 100,000 into 10 to the power of minus 3. If these two get cancelled, then 1 volt. That means for this current, the galvanometer can measure a potential difference of maximum equal to how much? 1 volt itself. Suppose if there is a circuit, okay, if there is a circuit consisting of resistor of resistance X ohm, maybe 100 ohm, 200 ohm, 1000 ohm, whatever it may be. Suppose the two ends of this resistor is connected to a cell or a battery, and now between the two ends of the resistor, if the potential difference is V equal to 10 volt, it may be of any value. I am considering on the example. This numerical value is only for the sake of example. It is not a standard value in which I am giving here. Now, if 10 volt potential difference is to be measured, then can I connect this galvanometer directly to measure this 10 volt potential difference? No, not at all. Because maximum it can measure a potential difference of 1 volt. Whereas we need to measure a potential difference between these two ends as equal to 10 volt for this amount of resistance. So what we do? We have to increase the range of voltage to be measured by the galvanometer. If we increase the range of voltage which is to be measured, then we can definitely use this galvanometer to measure the required potential difference. How to increase? Already we know that by connecting one high resistance in series. Now suppose if this galvanometer, this is the galvanometer, is connected with a high resistance in series, we know that this combination is going to act like an voltmeter now. Okay. So the whole combination, let us represent this by means of a dotted line. So this combination now acts like a voltmeter, but here soon after connecting the resistance in series, the voltage which is to be measured between the same two ends, look here, this voltmeter now it is connected in parallel. Always voltmeter must be connected in parallel between any two ends of a resistor in a circuit where potential difference is to be measured. If I need to measure the potential difference between these two ends, then between these two ends only the voltmeter should be connected in parallel, whereas ammeter should be connected always in series in a circuit, voltmeter in parallel in a circuit. Now the range of the voltage to be measured, now it is going to increase by connecting one high resistance in series. Say for example, if the high resistance in which I am going to connect is 900 ohm. Now what will be the potential difference across this voltmeter? The potential difference across this voltmeter is equal to potential difference across this resistance of the circuit. Let us calculate now that potential difference. V equal to current flowing through the galvanometer producing full scale deflection is Ig, full scale deflection. Okay, so this is nothing but galvanometer. V equal to, according to Ohm's law, current into resistance. What is the current that is flowing through the galvanometer? Ig. Remember, I is the main current, don't forget. This current soon after coming over here, it splits into two parts. Part of the current flows through the galvanometer, only small current producing full scale deflection. Large current cannot flow through this path because this path has got now a very high resistance and current cannot flow easily through high resistance path. Now majority of the current tends to flow through this resistance itself, through the resistance X. What is that current? I minus Ig. because main current I here splits into two parts. One part is Ig, remaining part is I minus Ig. So potential difference across the voltmeter is equal to the potential difference across this resistance. Let us calculate that. V equal to Ig into G plus, what is the resistance here? G plus R, because the two resistors are said to be in series. When the two resistors are in series, if we apply effective resistance of series combination formula, then effective resistance is always equal to sum of the individual resistance. Sum of the resistance G of the galvanometer plus resistance I resistance connected in series with it. Now this becomes equal to now Ig 10 milliamps. We have taken Ig as equal to current flowing producing full scale deflection 10 milliamps. 10 into 10 to the power of minus 3. G 100 ohm plus R 900 ohm. Now this is 10 into 10 to the power of minus 3. 100 plus 900 means it is 1000. So these two get cancelled. Now what will be the potential difference? Now the potential difference across the voltmeter is equal to 10 volt, which is same as that of the potential difference across the two ends of the resistor. So between these two ends, the potential difference is 10 volt. Now the voltmeter is going to read the same potential difference. So because we increased the range of measurement of the voltage in this galvanometer, how? By converting it into a voltmeter by putting on I resistance in series with it. Now this maximum deflection, now I write this as equal to now 10 volt. So without this I resistance, its range of measurement is 1 volt. With I resistance, the range of measurement of voltage got increased. Now it is 10 volt. Then how can I write this as equal to 10 volt? You take this equation now. First of all, I want to find what's the value of I resistance to be connected in series with galvanometer to measure the voltage of any range. Here we have taken as 10 volt as an example. In general, it may be 3 volt, 5 volt or 100 volt, 1000 volt, whatever it may be. In general, if you want to measure the potential difference of any value, what value of I resistance R should be connected in series? Let us calculate that in general. We can calculate that in general by making use of this equation itself, because potential difference across voltmeter is equal to potential difference across the resistance, which is same. So now cross multiply this. If I cross multiply this, what do I get now? V over Ig equal to G plus R. Then shift this G to this side. Then V over Ig minus G equal to R. That means the value of I resistance to be connected is V over Ig minus G. Remember, if the voltage to be measured changes, then the value of R also changes. Here it is 900 ohm. I have taken an example to measure the potential difference of how much? 10 volt. If it is of 100 volt, 100 volt is to be measured, then the value of R changes. We can find out from this equation. If you know the range of voltage to be measured and what's the current that produces full scale deflection and also the galvanometer resistance, then I value of R can be calculated. Now come back to this equation. Here G is constant and R is also constant, both are constant. So what I can write means, I can write this like this. Look here. So this is equal to now Ig into some constant K. Now what is V now? V is proportional to Ig. V is proportional to Ig. That means whatever potential difference that exists between the two ends of a resistor, that potential difference is directly proportional to the current flowing through the galvanometer. That means once again, the current flowing through the galvanometer, whatever full scale deflection it produces, that full scale deflection always reads what? Always reads the main potential difference. That is the meaning of this. In that way, the scale of the galvanometer must be calibrated. I write this separately. Look here. This is 0. Okay. Now, suppose through this galvanometer, if a current of, let us write here itself, Ig. One I resistance is also connected in series with it, don't forget. If a current of, let us say, about only 5 milliamp flows, then the pointer in the galvanometer reads half of the scale, and this value corresponds to how much now? 5 volt. Suppose if 10 milliamp current flows instead of 5, now the pointer shows full scale deflection. Now this point corresponds to how much? 10 volt. So this is how the scale must be calibrated. That means marking should be done proportionately, and it should be in accordance with V proportional to Ig. Okay, as Ig increases, V which is to be measured also increases. In such a way the graduation should be made. So that is why here I wrote that full scale deflection always reads the mean potential difference. In that view the marking should be done in the scale of the galvanometer. Now this is how we can understand how we can convert a galvanometer into an ammeter and also into voltmeter. But what are the ideal ammeter and ideal voltmeter? Also, what are practical ammeter and practical voltmeter? Let us look into this. An ideal ammeter is one whose resistance is equal to 0. Okay. Similarly, an ideal voltmeter is one whose resistance is equal to infinity. Is it possible to design an ammeter having 0 resistance and an voltmeter having infinite resistance? Which is not possible. So ideal ammeters and voltmeters cannot be designed or constructed with these resistances. Therefore we go for what? Practical one. Practically we make use of the ammeters and voltmeters which has got low resistance. Resistance should be low for practical ammeter, whereas for practical voltmeter resistance should be high, not infinity, high, not equal to infinity. So if there is a question for 1 mark, what is meant by practical ammeter or what is meant by ideal ammeter, you can say like this: ideal ammeter is one which has got 0 resistance, practical ammeter is one which has got low resistance. Similarly, ideal voltmeter has infinite resistance, whereas practical voltmeter has high resistance but not equal to infinity. So practically what are all the ammeters and voltmeters we use in the laboratory or in any electrical process or any electrical technology to measure the current or the potential difference? Those ammeters are nothing but practical one, because it becomes possible to design or to construct an ammeter having low resistance and a voltmeter having high resistance, but these two are not possible, practically not possible. That is why they are considered as ideal only, that's all. And we know that to a galvanometer, if you connect one low resistance known as shunt in parallel, the combination acts like an ammeter. And we also know very well that the effective resistance of the ammeter Ra equal to G into S divided by G plus S. Similarly, if the galvanometer is connected in high resistance is connected with high resistance in series, the combination will act like voltmeter. In such a case, what is the effective resistance of the voltmeter? I write V. R is effective resistance, V is voltmeter, which is nothing but equal to sum of these two resistances, G plus R. Overall, the ammeter will always have low resistance, whereas the voltmeter will have always high resistance, because voltmeter should not draw too much of current. If that happens, then the potential difference between any two ends of a circuit or a resistor to be measured, that changes. If the voltmeter draws too much of current, then the main current which is to be measured, that changes. That is why voltmeter is always made to have I resistance. That's why we connect I resistance in series with the galvanometer. When we connect this in parallel with this, then this voltmeter draws only small amount of current and it keeps the main current almost nearly same, and it becomes easy to measure the required potential difference. So these are all the differences, some differences between the ammeter and as well as the voltmeters. Now let us derive the expression for magnetic dipole moment of a revolving electron and also the expression for gyromagnetic ratio. Now suppose if I consider an electron revolving all around a nucleus, heavy nucleus whose charge is Ze. So let us consider now. So E is the charge of the electron. It is revolving around this heavy nucleus. So this is nucleus, and let the electron revolve around the nucleus with a velocity v, and we know that the direction of velocity is always tangential to the circular path, and this circular path is nothing but the orbit of the electron. For such a revolving electron, what is the expression for magnetic dipole moment? We come across two types of dipole moment, magnetic dipole moment and electric dipole moment. Here we derive the expression for magnetic dipole moment because always a moving charge constitutes a current, and because of current what is produced means magnetic field is produced. That is why we consider magnetic dipole moment. So Ze is the charge of heavy nucleus, then E is the charge of the electron, Actually the magnitude of the charge of the electron is only E. This minus is represented to show that it is a negatively charged particle like electron. So if it is not written, then it becomes the magnitude of the positive charge. Magnitude of positive charge and magnitude of negative charge are one and the same, but to distinguish or to identify whether the charge is positive or negative, we put minus sign so that it indicates it is a negative charge electron. Then V is the velocity of the electron. Okay. Now I consider like this, the motion of the electron gives rise to a current, because always current is defined as the flow of charges, that means flow of electrons. And we also know that the conventional direction of current and the motion of electron are always opposite to each other. That means the flow of electron and the conventional current direction are always opposite. If the electron is moving in which direction? In anti-clockwise direction, due to this motion of the electron, the current that is produced will be in clockwise direction. So I is the current produced due to the motion of the electron, and this I is given by Q by T. What is capital T? Capital T is the time taken to complete one revolution around the nucleus. When it completes one revolution around the nucleus, for one revolution, if it takes a time t, then for that one revolution, what's the current it produces? It produces a current I for every revolution. For one revolution, current is I. Again, for next revolution, the current is I. So this can be written as E by T, because Q means nothing but the charge of the electron, because electron is giving rise to the current. So what is T here? T is nothing but time period, time taken to complete one revolution around the nucleus, and this time period is given by formula 2 pi r by V. What is r? R is nothing but the radius of the orbit or radius of the circular path traced by the electron. Now if I substitute this T in this equation, so this is one of the basic definition of basic equation of current. Time rate of flow of charge is nothing but current. All that I have done means for Q I have substituted E, because charge means which charge is producing the current here? Electron is producing the current. Therefore consider only its magnitude, not the sign. And T, there is a difference between this capital T and small t. Small t is used to represent general time. Its value may be anything, but capital T is very particular. It is always the time period, means time taken to complete one revolution. If I substitute for T in this equation, what do I get now? I equal to E divided by, for T I can substitute 2 pi R divided by V. So if I shift this to this side, then what happens? Now I becomes equal to E into V divided by 2 pi R. Okay, but the magnetic moment of the revolving electron is given by the formula. Magnetic moment of revolving electron is given by the formula mu L. Usually for magnetic moment we were making use of the symbol either small m or capital M. Since it is a magnetic moment produced due to the orbital motion of the electron, for such magnetic moment we always use this particular symbol. Don't use small m or capital M. We use this particular notations, mu and L. Mu stands for magnetic moment and N represents the orbital motion here. So mu L equal to current into area of the circular path or area of the orbit. So what is its area? A. So where A equal to area of the orbit. See here what I do means, I imagine this orbit itself as a wire loop. This is not actually a metallic wire. Let us imagine that this orbit itself as a wire loop. So in this wire loop electron is flowing and it is giving rise to current. So that is how we have to assume or imagine here. So therefore A is the area of the orbit or the circular path. Then for I can substitute here EV divided by 2 pi R, and area of the circular path means pi R square. So pi and pi gets cancelled, one R and R gets cancelled. Now it is EV, one R is left, in the denominator 2 is left. Now what I do means, I multiply and divide right hand side by ME. Okay. So EVR divided by 2 into ME by ME. So if I multiply and divide, the original equation is not going to alter, that remains as it is. What is ME here? Where ME is nothing but mass of the electron. Mass of the electron. Okay. Now let us rewrite this equation. Mu L is equal to MEVR. I arrange the terms, rearrange the terms. I keep E separately, I group VR and ME together. In the denominator 2 into ME is there, 2 into ME. But what is the product of mass, velocity and this radius R? So, but MEVR is nothing but, we call this as L, which is nothing but angular momentum. Angular momentum of what? Angular momentum of the electron. So if I substitute that in this equation, it becomes now mu L equal to E. For this entire thing, I substitute angular momentum of the electron L divided by 2 into ME. Now this is the expression for the magnetic moment of a revolving electron. So expression for magnetic moment of revolving electron. Okay. Now, so here I can write this equation also like this: mu L by L equal to E divided by 2 into ME. So just by multiplying and dividing ME, we got this equation. What is the purpose of multiplying dividing? In order to obtain the value for angular momentum. If there is no mass, then we cannot write the angular momentum, because angular momentum is the product of all three. It becomes easy to substitute for MEVR. So this, if it gives the expression for magnetic moment of revolving electron, what about this ratio? Ratio of magnetic moment, this one, moment of the revolving electron to the angular momentum. This is nothing but ratio of magnetic moment to the angular momentum, of the revolving electron. So this ratio is nothing but this. This ratio is known as gyromagnetic ratio. Gyromagnetic ratio. So define gyromagnetic ratio means it is nothing but the ratio of the magnetic moment of the revolving electron to the angular momentum. Now I can also write this vectorially. How to write this vectorially? That means in the terms of vector. Vectorially, how do you write the magnetic moment? Mu L, I put arrow. This is equal to E divided by 2 into ME, then vector L. Okay. But here, what I do means, I write this as minus. Why should I use minus sign here? Remember, here the direction of magnetic moment, which is a vector quantity, and also the angular momentum. Both angular momentum and magnetic moment, both are vector. This is also vector, this is also vector. So, but these two vectors are in opposite direction. How can we say that mu L and L are opposite? Apply the rule now. Suppose, look here, if the current is flowing in which direction? In clockwise direction. Let us write one separate figure here. Current is flowing in clockwise direction, then the near face behaves like which pole? I told you to imagine this orbit itself as a wire loop. Okay. Then the near face behaves like a south pole, whereas far off face behaves like a north pole. That means, suppose if this is the loop may be of any shape, rectangular shape, square shape or circular shape. Here we have to choose the circular shape. Near face means this, far off face means back face. This face now behaves like south pole, whereas this face behaves like north pole. If that is the case, what will be the direction of the magnetic moment? The direction of magnetic moment is always from south pole to north pole. That means the direction of magnetic moment will be inwards like this. From south pole to north pole means it should move like this into the plane of the board. Okay. So let us write that in this way. So this is the direction of the magnetic dipole moment. Then what is the direction of angular momentum? To find the direction of angular momentum, what I do means I consider the motion of the electron. How is the electron moving? Electron is moving like this with a velocity v. Apply right hand rule to find the direction of angular momentum. How to apply? Look here. So, if the fingers curling gives the direction of motion of the electron is moving in anti-clockwise direction. So, I curl my fingers or I clasp my fingers in anti-clockwise direction. Then the thumb finger gives the direction of angular momentum. That means the angular momentum should be all along thumb finger, means it should be outwards like this. So, this will be the direction of angular momentum. That means now here if the magnetic dipole moment is acting inwards perpendicular to the plane of the board or perpendicular to the plane of this loop, then the angular momentum once again acts perpendicular to the plane of the loop, but it will be in outward direction. If this is the direction of L, this will be the direction of mu L. So direction of L and direction of mu L are opposite to each other. So that is why I use here the negative sign. Now suppose if I substitute for L value, because according to Bohr's theory, that means according to Bohr's postulate, so you are going to study about Bohr's postulate. Angular momentum of the electron is always equal to integer multiple of h over 2 pi, where n equal to 1, 2, 3 refers to orbit number or shell number or energy level. First orbit means first energy level, second orbit means second energy level. It goes like that. So this is also known as, so this is postulate, Bohr's postulate, and it is also known as Bohr's quantization condition. Bohr's quantization rule or Bohr's quantization condition. Okay. Now if I substitute for L in this equation, then what do we get? Now substituting for L equal to n into h over 2 pi in this equation now becomes, look here, mu L is equal to E divided by 2 into me. Okay, for L I substitute n into h divided by 2 pi. So mu L is equal to E into n into h, 2 into 2, 4 pi me. Okay. Suppose now if I take n as equal to 1, n refers to orbit number. That means if I assume the electron to be revolving in the first orbit, then n can be taken as equal to 1. If the electron revolves in the second orbit, then n should be taken as equal to 2. Here in this case I assume n equal to 1, then what happens to this equation now? This equation now becomes mu L equal to E into 1 into h, E into 1 into h divided by 4 pi me. That means this becomes now mu L equal to E into h divided by 4 pi me. So this value of magnetic moment, is known as Bohr's magneton. Bohr's magneton. What is meant by Bohr's magneton means it is nothing but the magnetic moment of the revolving electron in which orbit? In first orbit, or the minimum value of the magnetic moment. When does the magnetic moment of the revolving electron becomes minimum? Only when it revolves in the first orbit, then its magnetic moment becomes minimum, because n takes the value equal to 1. Other than first orbit, the magnetic moment of the revolving electron is not minimum. Only in the first orbit its value is minimum. So Bohr's magneton means the least value of magnetic moment of electron, of revolving electron in revolving electron, and it is possible in which orbit? In first orbit. In first orbit. So this is the definition of Bohr's magneton. Now if I substitute the value for charge of the electron, 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb, Planck's constant H 6.625 into 10 to the power of minus 34 joule second, mass of the electron 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 31 kg. Then we get the value for the Bohr's magneton, and the value of that Bohr's magneton is found to be equal to 9.27 into 10 to the power of minus 24 ampere meter square. So this is the value of Bohr's magneton, means Bohr's magneton is nothing but what? Least value of magnetic moment. In which orbit? In the first orbit. Similarly, if I consider this ratio mu L by L, which is equal to E divided by 2 into ME, if I substitute for E and ME, then we get this value as 8.8 into 10 to the power of 11 coulomb per kg. Coulomb per kg. So this is nothing but, this ratio is nothing but gyromagnetic ratio. Okay. So remember, this is nothing but gyromagnetic ratio. If this becomes gyromagnetic ratio, and this will be the Bohr's magneton of the revolving electron. So that completes this chapter, which is a very big chapter, and too many concepts are there in this chapter. You have to go through each and every concept in detail to understand it more clearly. So read it several times if you are not able to understand, so that you will become thorough with respect to all the concepts. So in our next class we commence a new chapter, we start a new chapter, that is magnetism and matter. Okay, thank you.